Viewer contributions make local programming possible on WNIN. Become a member of WNIN with your contribution so we can continue to make this programming available. Visit WNIN.org and click on the donate button.
Road construction in the tri-state feels like it's at an all-time high. We'll get some road construction updates from INDOT, the Lloyd for You project, the Ohio River Crossing project, and the city of Evansville. That's next on WNIN Newsmakers. Welcome to WNIN Newsmakers. I'm Noah Alatza, Chief Communications Officer for the University of Evansville. Here to give us the latest on state road projects in our region is Gary Bryan. He's the Public Relations Director for the Southwest region of the Indiana Department of Transportation. Gary, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, happy to be here.
Always great to see you. Let's start with the work that's going on along US 41. There's those Route 41 projects happening all along that corridor. Can you give us an update?
Yeah, so that project, it's really exciting. I think anybody in Evansville knows we've had a little bit of work going on, whether that's the Lloyd or US 41. The US 41 work is wrapping up within days right now. Last week, crews were out there basically putting the finishing touches on paving. So if you drove that area, you know that we had paving crews out going basically from Diamond Avenue all the way to the Lloyd, and then back, and then forth, and back and forth. Basically putting down the last layer of pavement. So the pavement folks see out there right now, that's the finished product. Our crews are going to be out there this week and maybe a little next week, depending on weather, putting down, our last bit of striping, putting the bows on the project, if you will, and then that'll be done. So, yeah, we're really excited to have US 41 kind of finally packaged up.
Yeah, no, that will be nice, I'm sure, for a lot of folks at home. I know you mentioned the striping and the Lloyd Expressway as well, and I know there's been some rumblings out in the community about not being able to really see those lines of traffic, particularly along the Lloyd Expressway. Is that of concern to INDOT? Is that something you're working on, and what's your message for people at home?
Yeah, so that is a big concern for us. This is an issue that we're aware of. So basically, the problem we have is along this corridor. It's near Epworth and also near Stockwell. These are intersections that completely change. We went from a normal intersection to displaced turns, displaced left turns, and different innovative intersections. So what has happened is we have where our old stripes are ground into the pavement. We do this to whenever we put stripes on to make them stay longer. The paint's not just going to go away. The paint's not there, but the concrete is a different color now. If anybody who's driven through there, you can tell there's the mark still, it's still ground down in the road. So it's not an easy fix. If we go and we put paint down, we try to fill those up, you're still going to have something, you're still going to see. So our team is looking at that right now. How can we basically fix this issue? How can we make it easier for motorists? We're encouraging everyone to use the high contrast markings through the area. So those are basically where it's a white line and a black line together. Those are high contrast. Basically,
Sure.
when you have rain or the conditions are different, we have the dark line so you can see the markings. If you've ever driven in rain, right, it's hard to see because the concrete's close to white lines. So we're encouraging people to use those markings for the time being. But we are currently working on plans to, in the short term, make it easier, raised markings so people can see where those lines that you're supposed to be traveling on are, and also some additional lines so it's very obvious.
So I know you mentioned, Gary, particularly Epworth and Stockwell, those intersections. Is this ultimately going to become an issue at Burkhart, Cross Point, some of these other thoroughfares that displaced left turn is coming to? And will you hopefully, there'll be a solution to some point by then?
Yeah, so this is definitely on our radar now, right? We are hopeful that this won't be an issue in the future. We have some technology that is way above my pay grade, but I've been speaking with my engineers about this, about what that looks like for the future. And we are pretty confident that we have a fix in place for the future to make sure that this isn't an issue again. This is something typically when we go back in and we are changing things up and what have you, the intersection itself isn't changing. So when the markings are still in the road, it's not as big of a deal.
Right.
This is a little bit of a bigger deal. And, this is another one of those moments where we're very grateful for the public who let us know of issues. I know a lot of folks will tell us when they don't like construction and all this,
Right.
and you could think that maybe we don't listen. We do. And we heard that this was an issue. We started checking into it, and yeah, we are working on the short term, the situations we have, and then also the long term on those intersections and the future intersections.
And Gary, aside from that US 41 and Lloyd Expressway corridor, are there any other road projects across Southwest Indiana, perhaps, that are of significance that you'd like to share for people at home?
Yeah, so I think one that is, we've had a lot of just projects here and there. Throughout, especially down here in the south, whether that's over in Spencer County or Perry County, Warwick County, a lot of pipe replacement projects, chip and seal projects. We do have we have public meetings going on for a US 41 project. It's a paving project between basically State Road 57 north of Evansville all the way up to about Fort Branch, and
Wow.
we're looking at some innovative intersections, about 9 of them, what we call the reduced conflict intersection. We're going to be looking at those through that entire corridor. It's pretty early phase right now, but we're getting public input. We're just held a public meeting last week on it, and we're getting some good feedback, and we're hopeful that project will help make Hoosier Road safer.
And I know INDOT crews are working year-round, but when is the bulk of that, right, summer construction kind of season? When does that really wrap up for you all, particularly this? Yeah.
Kind of depends on Mother Nature.
Okay.
So, if you ever see one of our press releases, we'll say all weather dependent, because if it's raining, we can't be putting blacktop down. We can't be doing any work, really. And if the temperatures cool down quicker on us, then, it makes it harder for our projects to wrap up. I think we saw that last year at US 41 and Washington Avenue. Temperatures and the weather weren't exactly agreeing with us, and it made that project go longer. But typically, we are starting to get into that time of year, like right now, where the temperatures are starting to drop. That's when we start saying, okay, we need to start wrapping this stuff up.
So Gary, tell us a little bit about the Lloyd for All project that's coming.
Yeah, so it's a study. We're looking basically at pedestrian access along the Lloyd, basically between US 41 all the way over to Epworth Road. And we're basically we're looking at access north of the Lloyd, basically to Morgan Avenue, and then south to Covert. Basically, we've been having public open houses to find out what people think needs improved. What could we do to make pedestrian access better around that area? It's just in a study phase. We're basically taking all that information that we got and, having it as a game plan, essentially, of how we can make things better for folks. We understand that the Lloyd itself is this large obstacle for folks to get from one side to the other and what have you. So we're basically working with the Evansville MPO on how we can, improve pedestrian access and make things better. So, at INDOT, we're all about trying to improve safety, improve mobility, and that even extends from cars. So that's what we're looking at there. And, it's called the Lloyd for All because the Lloyd's right through it, but it's really just looking at how we can make things a lot safer, a lot better for folks.
All right, Gary Bryan, Public Relations Director for the Southwestern branch of the Indiana Department of Transportation, INDOT. Thanks so much for being here.
Happy to be here.
Thanks. The multi-year Lloyd for You project has had broad impacts on traffic across the city of Evansville. Here to give us an update on that progress is Nicole Minton. Nicole, thank you so much for being here again.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely great to have you back. Let's start with parts of the project that have already been completed. Can you, I'm thinking of the Stockwell intersection. Any other areas that have been completed, or just touch on where we're at right now?
Yeah, that was a big milestone, having that intersection opened up with the improvements, and we were really excited for people to be able to enjoy the fruits of all of the patience that they had to endure in dealing with the construction there. So to have that kind of hybrid intersection open and for people to be able to get a feel for that displaced left turn, turning movement, and the boulevard left turn, we're really glad that people were able to enjoy that now.
I know recently, probably within the last 2-3 weeks, maybe even a little bit longer, work has begun there at Burkhart Road and the Lloyd Expressway. You hear about it all the time, Nicole. People frustrated. It's always a traffic jam, particularly at those high volume traffic hours. Rush hour. What is your message for folks that are traveling through that corridor right now? What is the timeline on that? Particularly asking about that Burkhart and Lloyd intersection.
Yeah. So until November, we're going to have some turning movements that are going to be restricted there at the intersection. And we all know that with the high volume that is, we have at that intersection, we need to do something to improve it. Unfortunately, when you try and do that something, it creates headaches for people who are trying to work through that construction zone and make their daily commute through there. So my best suggestion is to sign up for text and email updates so that you're aware of when the changes are going to be happening. Anytime you can travel off-peak, I just went through there in a matter of minutes. Not a problem at all when you're not dealing with the peak travel times, especially if you're just driving through the intersection. When you're trying to make those left-hand turns to get to Burkhart or to the Lloyd, they stack up. They take a little bit longer. We have a little less capacity in the turn lanes. So thinking of unique ways to get to where you want to go is also a helpful strategy too.
I'm curious what sections of the Lloyd, I just mentioned Burkhart, what other sections though are currently being worked on across the Lloyd corridor?
Yeah, so we've got Burkhart and Cross Point right there near each other. There's no good way to do those projects separately, just with the lane closures and the maintenance of traffic. It makes sense to pair those two together. And then we have the projects on the west side. So moving from around Barker all the way to the Posey County line, that area is all being improved at the same time. We're working on what are the westbound lanes right now, constructing all of those, replacing all of the pavement on those westbound lanes. And then eventually, once those improvements are all done, we'll move traffic over to those newly, paved westbound lanes and start construction on the east side. So altogether, we're looking at 2028 before we're wrapped up. But good news is the schedule is holding. Everything is on schedule and working as planned. So we're really hopeful that 2028 is within reach.
And that's just what I was going to ask you about, the being on schedule. So that's some really optimistic news. Does any work get done, as when things get frozen? I'm thinking of winter. I mean, is there any other logistical work that you all are still doing though, perhaps as we enter some cooler months ahead?
Yeah, so there are some things. For instance, the bridges that are being built, we have new added capacity on the west side. So the T-couple bridge, the train bridge, Carpenter Creek, those have a type of wall construction that can be done even when it's cold. Now, when the plants shut down and we aren't able to repave things, that does change the kind of work, but there's still lots of work that can be done in those colder months when we typically don't see as much road construction.
What's your message for folks at home who just keep saying enough is enough with the construction, Nicole? What is your parting message to them?
Yeah, I just ask that people, exhibit some patience and understand that there's no good way to improve the Lloyd without creating some headaches. And it's frustrating when you feel like, man, there are a lot of projects going on in Evansville right now. But boy, are we fortunate that, that we have the kind of investments in our community that are creating this kind of construction. And when those orange barrels move out, it's going to be a really nice to have better efficiency, better safety on all of these corridors.
Nicole Minton, thanks so much. Always great to see you. We appreciate your updates on the Lloyd for You, and I know you will be back for another update shortly.
Me too. Thank you.
Thanks. Now we're joined by Mike Libitsky, engineer for the city of Evansville. Mike, always great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Noel.
What are some of the major road projects going on in the city right now? We've already heard from guests about the Lloyd Expressway and US 41, but what's going on in the city?
Yeah, so the city of Evansville still has its paving list that needs to finish for the year. So we're trying to coordinate this as best we can with everything else going on. Some of the bigger corridors are Green River Road from Morgan up to just south of Lynch Road, where we've stopped paving in previous years. That's going to do a pretty deep. It's going to have a pretty deep mill and overlay. We'll do that during the night to avoid a lot of the congestion from the traffic and stuff, and keep people as safe as possible. And then Washington Street's probably the other really big corridor. That'll be a mill and overlay from about 8th Street all the way out to Weinbach, across 41 and out to Weinbach.
And I know Waterworks had some work done too, people trying to get out to the marina there, perhaps. What's that looking like?
Yeah, it did. So there was a lot of soft subgrade failure. We were able to look back on aerials and saw, I mean, that's a pretty persistent problem. It's been that way for well over a decade. So city crews tried to get out there and do a deep patch to it, try to stabilize that subgrade, and they just ran out of week. So they ended up just putting rock up just so that the businesses down there could get customers to them over the weekend.
Mike, you mentioned off camera, a lot of these projects that you've got to do up through October. I'm curious, are there any other ones, particularly in the downtown corridor, related to the Evansville water and sewer utility, some of the construction projects there affecting road closures? Are those figured into this schedule too for overall city paving?
They are. I know it doesn't seem like it because there's so much going on, but yeah, we do try to shuffle the deck with the contractor. There's several different contractors we have to deal with too. So, like say the paving contractor for Walnut, for example, isn't the same contractor that I have to pave Washington Avenue or to pave Court Street, which is also on the list in the downtown. But we do try to coordinate with the individual contracts so that we can kind of clear some of the work out before we start new work.
And you're driving, let's say Lincoln, even Covert over there by Fuquay Road. You see fresh oil, and I think this is such a fascinating topic, fresh oil laid down. Can you help our viewers at home understand what is that doing? Why are you guys putting oil down, maybe a little sand? What is the purposes of that in terms of road care? Yeah,
so that's kind of a new tool in our toolbox, so to speak. So we hadn't done it before 2024. What that is, that's a maltine asphalt oil that we put on the existing asphalt. Then we sprinkle with a little sand so it can kind of help sop up the excess oil. What that oil does is replaces a pretty vital piece of the asphalt that either gets evaporated when the hot mix asphalt is initially installed or has degraded over time just with ultraviolet degradation. The maltines, which are very flexible, help that asphalt to stay waterproof and gives it a longer life. So it costs about 10% of what it would cost for a mill and overlay, and we expect to get a whole lot more than 10% additional life out of it by applying it.
And this is separate from chip and seal?
Yeah, it is not chip and seal. Okay. Yeah, we do not chip and seal within the city limits.
And why?
Well, just because of the oil, and then just the aggregate. I mean, the oil and the aggregate, it just causes stickiness to cars. It's just not clean. It doesn't really give off a city feel. It's more of a country feel. So.
Sure. When all is said and done, when are you hopeful to have a majority of all of that street paving finished for 2025?
It'll take us right up to the end of the year. So right up to Thanksgiving. And if there's good weather beyond that, we may be even working between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So, the last step will always be to stripe it. So it just depends if the temperatures are right. It needs to be 50 degrees or rising to finish our work.
If I'm driving on a city street, run into a pothole, crevice, divot, whatever have you, want to make my concerns heard, who am I contacting at the city, Mike? Is that you in your office?
So it's not, but it's you can contact anybody in the city. We'll get you to the right person. But there's a pothole email, I think, that goes to the Board of Public Works and the city garage. They're actively out there all the time, filling potholes and trying to get the roads back to as best a condition as possible.
What do you tell people at home who are fed up with the road work? What's your parting message?
Well, it's tough. I mean, there's a lot of potholes and there's a lot of paving, and the paving the paving fixes the potholes. So I know the existing condition isn't great, but there's still more kind of pain to go through to get the condition better. The beauty of a mill and overlay, or even like a preventative sealant that we're putting on like Covert, it only takes a couple of days. And hopefully, if we're there 4 days to mill and overlay and stripe it, we won't be there for a couple of years till we put that sealer down and then we won't be there for 3 to 5 more years till we do a crack and seal. And we won't be there for 10 or 15 more years until we have to mill and overlay it again. So we just have to get ahead of the curve. We have fallen behind the curve over the last couple of decades, and it's going to take a lot of work to get back into our right spot on the curve to keep our roads maintained.
What's led us to being behind the curve? I'm just curious if people are interested. Why are we behind the curve?
A lot of it's underinvestment. So it's how much has been available to pave roads. So I can look back even before my tenure and to see how much was invested through the budget, annual budget. $1 to $2 to maybe $3 million a year was invested, and that just doesn't pave a whole lot of roads. It used to be that our only mechanism to improve roads was a mill and overlay. We're at a point you can't mill and overlay your way out of this mess. So you have to do multiple things like this preventive seal or like crack sealing and other things.
I'm just curious too, Mike, what ballpark, do you have a number, like what would be the magic number to repave and fix every single road in the city, if you could get that number?
Every single road in the city would cost $120 million.
Wow. That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of roadways.
And when you're only putting $1, $2, $3 million a year.
And if a roadway's only supposed to last 20 years at most, we're really kind of getting more like 15 years out of our roads. That means we'd have to do more than 10 to 12 million a year, and we're not doing anywhere close to that to maintain.
An important fact for people at home, and I know that it's always a work in progress. Always.
It is, yeah. It's a maintenance issue. It's not really a one and done because I'm trying to get it to a place where it's maintainable and manageable.
Mike Libitsky, engineer for the city of Evansville. Great to see you. Thanks for coming.
Great to be back. Thank you.
Joining us to give us an update on the new I-69 bridge is Mindy Peterson. She's the spokesperson for the I-69 Ohio River Crossing Project. Mindy, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. First, I think in the past couple of weeks, we've seen, several of these big beams being brought down US 41 and I-69. Can you just kind of give us an overview of the project? Where are we right now?
We have so much progress happening on both sides of the river. So we'll start here in Evansville because that's where we see those large beams coming in. And it's exciting. Work started in Evansville late last year. This is the approach work leading to the new I-69 bridge. We are right on track in Evansville to be 60% complete by the end of this year. That's big, right on schedule, and we'll be done at the end of next year with the work in Evansville.
Wow, that's hard to believe. And does that so that includes the beams and the deck and all of that? You're going to say end of next year.
Mm-hmm. So with the work in Evansville, we include some of the approach roadways and bridges. And what's very important about what's happening now and what is being built now is it provides all-weather construction access to build that future I-69 bridge. That's huge. This entire area nearly is a floodplain for the project area. And we have to have that all-weather construction access when we start building that bridge to get the access for crews, to get to the river, to build the bridge, to maintain the schedule, to not be impacted by the flooding and those, conditions.
Right, and I know when you're driving along 69 and you look over there, you can kind of see where the trees have been cleared and you can kind of see the path that's progressing. Are there any obstacles though that you all have had to overcome so far?
On the Evansville side, certainly the flooding. I mean, we are in a floodplain, and we had 2 really significant flooding issues earlier this year, flooding events that impacted us, that sidelined us, that we had to prepare for. We had to get that large equipment elevated and keep it out of the water. We had to move a lot of things off-site. We had to adapt. We were continuing to work, but it was off-site. But now, we've had summer, we've had a lot of drier weather, we've had the heat, of course, but things are going very, very well. And when we talk about those beams coming in, those are incredibly large beams, some of the largest being used in the Midwest in transportation projects. Each one is nearly 200 feet long. Each one weighs 100 tons. It's one beam per special vehicle coming in, 4 beams coming in 3 days a week. They are putting those beams up, as they come in. So the beams are delivered. They're in by the end of the day. They now have more than 50 in place. So I was just on site yesterday, and it's incredible to see the progress because what once was a cornfield now has a very, very large bridge that is being built. This is what we call Bridge 1. It's an approach bridge that is nearly 4,000 feet long. It is an incredibly large bridge, and one of the most common questions we get is, where is that new I-69 bridge going to be? It really is an arrow almost pointing to the direction of the bridge because it will be the approach to it.
That is so fascinating. When will the actual bridge itself, when is that scheduled to open to the public?
There is so much progress on that side. So work in Henderson started in 2022. It will be complete late this year. We're almost there. It will be complete really by the end of October. We'll have things tied up in Henderson. In Evansville, as I said, right on track to finish late next year. Construction on Section 2, the I-69 bridge, is on schedule to start in early 2027. So it ladders up so nicely. 25, we're done in Kentucky. 26, we're done with the Indiana approach work. 27, we start working, and then that new bridge should open to traffic in 2031.
Wow, it really is progressing. And Mindy, before we let you go, just is there anything about the project that you think would surprise people at home?
You know, just the sheer amount of work and planning and coordination. I mean, everybody behind the scenes making this happen, the folks at INDOT, the folks at KYTC, so many partners. I myself have been involved with this project since 2017. We have champions on both sides of the river that have been talking about this project so long. It really is what we would call a generational project. We don't have projects like this that come along every day. And when we have that cross-river interstate connectivity between Evansville and Henderson, I really think it's going to be a game changer for the area.
Right, lots of significant impacts ahead. Mindy Peterson, spokesperson for the I-69 Ohio River Crossing Project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thanks to all of our guests for telling us more about all of the road projects going on across the area. I'm Noah Alatza, Chief Communications Officer for the University of Evansville. Thanks for watching WNIN Newsmakers.